Okay, so your problem here is driving me up a wall. So here is a generic layout of how this system goes. We got the main positive from the battery comes over here and goes to this top lug on the starter. So it's just a giant battery, a giant wire for the battery. If you take a screwdriver and go from this big wire to this little wire and the engine cranks over, we've got half of the battle beat. And you said you've done that because the body of the starter is bolted to the body of the car, which is conducting the negative from this body strap body of the car, connected to the body of the car. Negative goes to the starter motor. So you got your negative there. We know that's good. We know that the positive is good because when you jump from this to this, the starter cranks over. So we're only worried about this half of the circuit or the diagram. The little starter wire that you found 5.4 volts on leaves the starter, bypasses that. So I'm sure that there is a junction block between the firewall and the inside of the car somewhere. We'll ignore that for now. We'll hope that that's good. I haven't seen many of that go wrong. And then it goes from there to the neutral safety switch. Right now, I have you playing around with the ignition switch. So when you jump from the red to the purple and you get a little spark, there could still be a problem in this neutral safety switch. Could be a problem here. If you're able to get a jumper wire, because I guess your battery is inside the car. So if you take a jumper wire and go straight from the positive on this battery, this neutral safety switch is on your shifter, as we just learned tonight from Google. So if you go from the positive on the battery with a jumper wire directly to one of the purple wires on the switch that is on the shifter, one won't do anything because it's just going to backfeed here. Who cares? The other one is going to feed down to the starter. So if you can access your neutral safety switch and hit it here with 12 volts directly from the battery, and you get the same result that the starter cranks over, that's great. That means that this junction, which I'm sure exists, we know that that's good. That's passing current. And then if both wires do it, that means that the neutral safety switch is also good to go. Because if you put it here and this switch is open, it won't do anything. If you put it there and this switch is open, it'll work regardless. If the switch is open or closed, this will work. Putting power right here. If you put power here and this joint, this switch contact between this one and that one is sketchy. Power here it works, power here it does not work while in neutral or park. Then that means that this switch contact is sketchy. This is burnt out. I had theorized that simply putting it in neutral should be able to bypass that problem, but the more I think about it, this switch has 3 contacts inside. 1, 2, and then there's like a slider gauge. Basically a block, a little square of metal that connects these two together, depending on where you're at. And it probably has 2 different squares of metal. One is for neutral, and the other one is for park. But if these contacts are fucked up, it won't matter how good these contacts are. These contacts are still fucked up. So it won't pass enough current to actuate the starter. So if you put power here and it freaking cranks, then we're at this point in the chain and we're still trying to work that way. If you put power here and it doesn't crank, we got to figure out where this junction block is and examine possible corrosion on a wire on that area. So if you put power here and it cranks, if you put power here and it cranks. Direct jump, a wire directly from your positive directly to here, and it cranks. Directly from here, and it cranks. From here to here, it cranks. From here to here, it no crank. Then we blame the neutral safety switch. From here to here, it crank. We're back to looking at the ignition switch, which might not be passing enough power. It sounds like you've already done that, though. If you took this red wire and jumpered it to this purple wire, it should have passed enough to go. The very last thing that I asked you before we went to dinner was if you probe this wire, this red wire, for 12 volts, and you have it sitting there with nothing connected, you have 12 volts here, and then you install a jumper from here to here, from the red to the purple. If this wire suddenly drops down to 5 volts or something really low, there must be another one of these junction blocks between the body, it's probably the same physical block, but it's doing the same job. That again, there's a corroded wire in here, that this red wire isn't passing enough current to the ignition switch. And yes, it started and it ran before. Once these old cars are started up, they hardly need any electricity. You can actually run the distributor off of like a 9-volt battery for, I don't know, 5 minutes, let's say. I've had cars that lost the alternator belt, and I've driven them for hours. If the headlights are not turned on, sucking electricity away from the battery, that battery will power the ignition system for almost ever. Hardly takes any energy at all to power the ignition system. So the motor will run, but the starter system uses a boatload of electricity in order to crank and get the thing going. So again, if you got positive here and it starts, and we jump up here and we put positive here, which you're effectively doing with your paperclip, jumping from here to here, but it would be great if you could take a jumper wire straight from this positive on the battery and go to there. In other words, you would eliminate this possible problem, just eliminate that altogether. If you go from here to here and it cranks, then we got to dig into this. Then I would go actually from here to here and turn the key. And if it cranks again, that means we're surely got a problem in this wire. And from there, we got to do some more research, because I'm not sure where this wire, what route this wire takes to get back to the battery. So effectively, what I'm saying is, if you take a positive from this battery and go here, it will crank. And you've done that. You've already done that. You said when you jump from here to here, it cranks. So we know that that's good. The starter is good. We go right to the neutral safety switch. Go from here to here. If it cranks, all this other stuff is good. If it don't crank, something in there is going wrong. Go from here to here. If it cranks, the neutral safety switch is good. If it no crank, but it do crank, no crank, do crank, no crank, neutral safety switch to blame. Do crank, no crank, that's fucking bizarre, because I'm pretty sure it's a positive, a solid wire going from one to the other. And again, you've already gone from here to here, and it no crank. So that's where I'm scratching my head. We'll just keep digging into it. I hope that kind of makes sense, at least to get you thinking what I'm thinking. That we go down the line, and you've already started at the end, and it works. And now we're just taking baby steps backwards through the circuit to see where things have gone wrong. All right, later.